Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Sruthi, thanks for having us.
Great. Just before we kick off, I wanted to kind of go around and have you guys introduce yourselves to the folks in our audience. So if you could share your name, where you work, and also just a little maybe travel story. So maybe your favorite travel destination or your next upcoming trip or anything like that. Karen, we can start with you.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Karen Brennan. I'm the Director of Sales with Campus Cooks. We're based here in the Chicago area, and our company provides professional kitchen management and private chef services to fraternities and sororities across the country. So very exciting work. In terms of favorite travel story, I have to say it's very, very recent. I just came back from safari where I was on a 2-week safari in the Serengeti and booked it through TripActions, which was great with a supplier, travel supplier named Wildlife Explorer for the safari part. But yeah, so excited to be here today.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. Emily, over to you, and then to Nick.
All right. Thanks, Sruthi. I'm Emily Butler. I'm on the sales team over here at Pave. Pave is a suite of compensation tools that helps companies figure out what to pay people, helps them communicate that back to their employees, and then run comp cycles, things like that. And favorite travel destination for pleasure, probably Italy. I'm really hoping to get there this summer. And then for business, I love going to New York. It's always just a really fun energy.
Both are great places. Thanks, Emily. And Nick, can you close us out?
Yeah, thanks, Sruthi. Hi, Nick Casale. I'm the Director of Sales at Sendoso. Sendoso is a sending platform, so coffee, swag, gifts, cupcakes, anything you want, we help you send it out. God, I'm not going to be able to top the Serengeti, but top of mind for me right now. Recently, I had I was on the road for 3 weeks from San Francisco to Austin, Texas for a conference. From Austin to DC for a wedding for a week. From DC to Virginia, back to DC, and then up to New York, and then direct to San Diego for the weekend for my dad's birthday with the family, and then up to San Francisco.
So, oh my gosh,
that was could have been a nightmare between trying to work throughout that 3-week period across all the cities, but ended up going very smoothly thanks to TripActions. Look at that.
Awesome. Well, first, welcome home. I'm glad you made it in one piece. And second, we definitely have true road warriors with us today. So that's really exciting. So let's kick it off. First question here is, how has your company changed their approach to business travel in light of the past 2 years' events? And Emily, you can start.
Yeah, well, I've only been at Pave for about 6 months, and Pave's like a newer startup. But I would say like the biggest one is we really value like the in-person culture. We're pretty quick to come back to office. Is a large part of like why I joined Pave. I mean, obviously there's a million other great things. But I think with moving back to office, we'd hired a like handful of remote employees, but because we value that so much, we have like end of every month, especially on the sales team, we actually have everyone in our office right now from New York and the remote employees. So being able to like bring those people back in once a month has been like a huge priority. And I'm actually moving to our New York office, so I'm going to be one of those like remote employees coming back every month, which will be fun. But
oh my gosh, wow, congratulations. That's a big move.
Yeah, very excited.
Karen, how has Campus Cooks changed approach to business travel?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. I mean, so many of our customers were not in session. During the pandemic, the universities closed, the sororities and fraternities had to, their students were remote. So some of the things that we used to do in person to support our chefs, who are the majority of our employees around the country, related to training, and we'd bring them to the home office for our proprietary College of Campus Cooks, where we're teaching them private chef training as it relates to the Greek system. So that's gone virtual now, and instead of that many to one, them coming to us, we are now going to the market. So we've got executive chefs who are traveling, district and account management folks, and leadership team members such as myself traveling as well. So we've really shifted in the pandemic and realized how much more effective we could be as a remote organization. Even the folks who are technically in the headquarters office in Chicago don't necessarily have to live here now. I've got new members of my team. In fact, they're almost all remote now, so it's pretty exciting. So big shifts and massive savings, I would say, with that as well. I mean, we've taken our travel spend from like 4.5% of annual revenue to less than 3%. So it's been a really nice outcome for our financial team as well. They're pretty excited about that because we've passed those savings on to our customers.
Definitely. Definitely feels like a massive shift. Thank you for sharing that with us. Nick, how does Sendoso change their approach to business travel?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's been really a moving target for probably the past 2.5 years now. And it's a little bit of kind of trial and error and figuring out what works best for the business and for us as well as for our employees. So I think, the first one that we saw obviously was how do we support people entirely virtually? And then as we're starting to return to work, how do we think about doing that in a way that's responsible and keeping our employees' mental health and physical health both in mind. So, the little things like having the TripActions notifications for what the COVID restrictions were, which now seems silly, even though it was really recently. But there was a time there where I was sort of one of the first people back to starting to travel around, whether it was our different offices where our employees are, or conferences, or meetings with clients. And there was a point where each place you landed had its own set of rules and documents you'd have to have and things like that. So I think having that really handled and having a clean understanding of sort of what you need to know from that perspective has been big. And then also being able to take advantage of the remote environment and have employees all over the US. We've gone hybrid. So we have offices in San Francisco and Scottsdale, Arizona. But when COVID hit, we took the opportunity to hire talent wherever they were. So now we all of a sudden have, a very sort of distributed team with, I'd say, pockets in SF and Arizona. And that creates a lot of opportunity where if we have a field event in, say, Nashville, like we do coming up, we can send sort of the rep in Atlanta and the rep in Tennessee, and our people team's able to help us have those conversations and work with marketing to say, hey, let's send the people that are closer. They can see if they've been traveling recently and, if they're sort of in the right, place to be able to travel again. So it's made life a lot easier from that perspective. And then it's also created a lot of challenges when we do bring the teams together. We just had a team offsite in San Diego, and we had to fly it was specifically a couple of our sales teams. So we had to get 50 people from across the US to San Diego. So that was obviously a lot to manage for our people team, but they were able to get that all done with TripActions, and I could see everyone's itineraries for when they were landing, and it all went smoothly. It was last week, so we're still knock on wood, but it seems so far like everything went very smooth.
That's great. And I feel like just the trend that I heard from all three of you and that I'm experiencing myself as an employee is just the return of more, not just offsites, but more on-sites. We are technically a hybrid workplace, but we also encourage folks to go into their home offices. So we have offices across the world. So I am one of the few, or not one of the few, but I am part of our HQ. And so I get, a really great opportunity because people are always coming into HQ. So there's always tons of activities. And I think that's definitely what's kind of changed for me with business travel is a lot more on-sites versus just off-sites and a lot more team activity, dinners. But it's been really fun, especially getting to know new team members that were hired during, COVID and when we were all remote. But great. So how do you guys foresee the amount of travel you do or the type of travel you do changing as your company's distribution changes? And I think we kind of touched on this, but, from remote to in office or a hybrid model. Emily, you can.
I can take that. Well, I think personally, that's about to change pretty dramatically for me. I'm moving in July, so about a month from now, and being part of the cohort that's now going to be the last week of every month traveling back to San Francisco to kind of close out the month together. I personally haven't experienced that. I haven't traveled that much for work ever. And so that's going to be, I think, a big adjustment, just figuring out the red-eye flights and all the fun stuff that comes with booking travel that frequently for work. But I'm excited. It's going to be really fun.
I feel like you're going to start off with a bunch of red eyes and just slowly transition into less and less red eyes when you're like,
I'm from Virginia and I've been on the West Coast for 6 years, so I'm no stranger to red eyes back to the East Coast, but I do not love taking calls after red eyes, so I'm going to have to figure that out.
Well, I'm going to have to send you a really good eye mask for all your travel coming up. Great. Yeah. Karen, Nick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just in terms of kind of return to travel, what's next for us? I mean, we had a phenomenal sales year. I can say that. We had a phenomenal year for account management as well. So high retention, high sales numbers. So we're predicting that, those two factors combined with a tight labor market that, until we find the right chef for perhaps a new account, we'll be filling in with people who are coming from different markets to make sure that the client's getting the experience that they're after. So we're expecting some large peaks of demands this summer, operationally. And from a sales perspective, it's pretty seasonal. We've got a lot of trade shows over the summer, and then, we're really talking to those customers at the major universities kind of throughout the year. So, but just planning those more strategically as well. Do we have to be there in person every time? Are there some events or advisory boards or road shows we can put together that are more strategic and less kind of one-to-one where you feel like you're hopscotching all over? It's we're large in our sector, but we don't have thousands of people, so I want to make sure those resources are deployed correctly and that people have a really good quality of life as best as possible.
Great.
Not sure, I think those are the top thoughts I have.
Yeah. So on that note, Karen, how is the way your organization operates? Has it changed as a result of these changes to business travel?
Yeah, I would say we're doing more leisure and taking more time to be thoughtful and take those breaks. I mean, it's fun to go to Tuscaloosa, Corvallis, big games in Texas, when you're there for business on a Thursday or Friday. So, thank goodness for the industry partners such as, all the major hotel companies and the sharing economy options, because then we personally say, well, I'm already here and I've always wanted to see Roll Tide, so I'm going to just stay. And so that's been really fun for the team, or if you're able to see family as well, it's a lot of fun. Because this is a very, very much a relationship-driven business, and it's when you're on, you want to be authentic, but you also want to have that opportunity to replenish, the stores of energy. So, I mean, I'm a perfect example. I had meetings in Indiana yesterday where many fraternal organizations are headquartered, and we stayed at a really cute inn in a state park. I'm like, if I'm going to work out in the morning, I'm doing it in the state park instead of in a hotel treadmill somewhere on I-65. Right. So it's been really fun to have a really nice assortment of, product to choose from with an organization like TripActions. So it's been fun.
Great.
We're making the most of it.
You're adding things to my bucket list. I'm like, okay, Betty's on my bucket list. I want to go watch, a live Alabama game. Like, it's all getting on there. Yeah.
You have a very fun job, and I get to work with some incredible people. And if you met the students I'm meeting, you would be so pumped about the future. Some incredible people coming up into the ranks of the workforce very soon.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nick, Emily, how have your day-to-days changed, as a result of these changes to business travel?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been a lot of juggling, I would say. Now with remote work being so common, I think what we used to see a lot of was people were sort of either on the road or in the office. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the road, there was, some dialing in here and there to certain stuff, but generally you were sort of, at an event or an offsite or with clients or whatnot in person. And the team would kind of all be in a room. And so it was a little weird if you dialed in, and now it's a lot more blended. And so I think we're seeing people, I think we're seeing a lot more of people trying to really time their flights, sort of play a little bit of calendar Tetris around their important meetings. So maybe not exactly say before and after hours, because I think that's also become, a lot more sort of, I'd say, flexible just with the different time zones. So like, for example, I have reports that are anywhere from, far East Coast to the West Coast. So it's not exactly, a 9 to 5. Maybe I could have calls that are theoretically 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., depending where I am at any given point in time. So depending how long the flight's going to be, depending what time zone it is where I land, where I'm taking off, where's the client meeting, it's a lot of that sort of Tetris, I'd say right now. And that's definitely just been a learning experience for me, and something that I think could be really challenging, but luckily we use TripActions, so that makes it pretty easy. And my team can sort of look at my calendar and help me schedule accordingly, which is great.
To be fair, I feel like your personality is to be on the road. So it's great that like now everyone's catching up with it, and it's not crazy to work around one person's schedule who may be more people tend to be more interested in travel or leisure and making those extended trips. And now it just feels super normal workflow. I know for myself, a big shift for me has been really thinking about how to bring the team together. Whereas previous to COVID, my team was basically in the office or in our other office locations. So, you could fly and go to the other office location and you see everyone in one place. But now it's really talking about like how to bring those people together. And so I myself am like organizing my schedule based off of when are my teammates going to be able to come in, or when can I bring my team together, and when can we get that, and when we are together, how are we making the most out of the in-person moments. So a lot more dinners, a lot more activities. Actually last week we were trying to do something different, and we went to Color Me Mine, kind of like petroglyph, or basically painting pottery items. And so picking that up later today. So we'll get to see how this turned out. But actually it was great. Got to get people to kind of come out of their shell a little bit. Great. Let's go to the next one. Traveling constantly exhausting, and just kind of wanted to hear from you guys. What are some of the comforts or smaller things you seek out when traveling for work? And how does technology help ensure these comforts will be available? And Nick, I'd love to hear from you first, and then Karen.
Oh, I'll go first because I'm a brat. Yeah, so I have a couple. I have some strong preferences for sure when I travel, because it just makes life that much easier, right? So mine is like ensuring that when I land, as I was saying, because with the calendar Tetris, I could land, anywhere from, if it's a red eye going to east, you could be landing at 6 a.m. You could be landing late at night, middle of the day. So knowing that the hotel is going to have the right level of Wi-Fi to take calls, have spaces to take calls if my room isn't ready, knowing that my room is going to have a desk and a chair, which I might sound like a given, but I promise you it is not. I've had enough bad experiences now. So on the tech side, just being able to add, and I travel so much now that I have status with Marriott and things like that. So being able to have all that information just right in TripActions, so that when it gets booked either for me or when I book it, it just shows up right in the platform. It gets out of my calendar, and then I show up at the hotel and they have all the info saved. A lot of times I can get my room early because of that too. But if not, at least I know there's a certain standard of like Wi-Fi, all that stuff, and I can set my preferences in TripActions so that I don't have to worry about it, and there's not as much sort of offline back and forth with the people team if they're booking it. And for me, I can just do it in a few clicks if it's something I'm doing on my own.
Okay, so Nick, I have to ask, you have a very clear standard of what it is to work from a remote space. What is the weirdest remote space you've worked from?
Oh God, that's not, I worked from a Sprinter van for like 4 weeks. Does that count?
Yeah, that's the answer I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah, I did. It was probably the weirdest, and it's definitely the most unique, I would say. Like, definitely got some of the best reactions from people because the way you sit in it is the chair is facing backwards. It's not in the front seat, obviously. So people are just seeing the front of a car behind you. So you get some funny reactions, but it was actually definitely not the least. It was pretty nice compared to a lot of other places I've had to take calls. So
yeah, like those hotels without a desk.
Definitely the weirdest. I mean, anything beats sitting in the corner of an airport on the floor.
Yeah, that is true.
Been there too.
So Karen, what are some of the comforts or smaller things you seek out when traveling for work, and how does technology kind of help with that?
Yeah, I really appreciate, this might sound so basic, I really appreciate the detailed information on properties, and it can be from photos as well. If I have one priority with business travel, it's sleep. I just feel like I have a personality disorder if I don't get at least 7 hours. And so, red eyes for me, I try not to, but really looking at even micro details such as, is that the type of air conditioner that's going to like flip on and off all night? Because it's going to wake me up and I'm going to be miserable the next day. So I truly value, I don't know, whoever is your rate loading and product loading departments that add, really, I look at all the photos. If there's 30 there, I'm probably looking at them. So keep that up. Some of the technology that aspects I love, obviously that the points are attributed to the accounts, so that we're recognized when we get there. And more road warriors than our account district managers are on the road even more. And that how some of the airline programs will feed in, so we get those aggregate benefits as well. And we can start giving people perks, such as status or a club membership. Those are some of the things that I just love how all the dots connect. And I think that this industry plays really well in the sandbox together. So keep the communication going. Those of us on the road and those of us who aren't in this room with me truly appreciate the hospitality. And I love, related to TripActions and Liquid, because we are customers of both, the functionality of those two systems is amazing. I'm not sure that makes my life so much easier. That screaming sound as I was like doing reconciliations or reports is no longer happening. So
that's always a plus.
I have a big team. I'm approving a lot of reports, and I won't go into that now because we have another talk on Liquid, but I've got some more stories to share there too.
Oh, that's just the next question, because you
okay, good.
For it.
And hopefully I've answered your question.
But Emily, I want to hear from you. How does technology help ensure that the comforts you care about when you're traveling are available?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to kind of echo Karen and Nick a little bit. I think the two things that caused me the most stress in the last couple of years, and with everything sort of switching to digital, is good Wi-Fi. In my role before Pave, I was selling virtual event technology, which really required strong Wi-Fi to actually showcase. So that was always really important, whether I was staying in a hotel or a Airbnb, wherever it was. Checking that the Wi-Fi connection was going to be really strong was super important. And then the other one is also sleep. So being able to make sure I'm accumulating enough points on each trip, so that when I've had situations where you're not able to check in until 4 p.m. or it's great when you kind of get off a red eye and you have those points accumulated to get there, and they're like, oh, we actually have a room available for you at 8 a.m. if you want to go in and take a nap before your workday starts. So that's been really important too. So making sure that I can check in early where it's applicable and get a little bit of extra sleep, and then also ensuring there's going to be strong Wi-Fi if I'm working on the road.
Definitely. Yep, I think it's key to get off a red eye and be able to get in that hotel room, because I need a nap or a shower or both. So great. So Karen, I'm actually going to start with you on this one. So just get ready. What types of technology or software do you use when booking travel and submitting expenses? And what do you like about it? And what would you change?
Well, it's interesting. When we made the decision to hire TripActions as our travel management company, Liquid wasn't even on my radar. I mean, I'm not the finance leader, but when the sales team came to us with the idea, we were using obviously a card that, for travel and the expenses of all the things we've talked about here, but more importantly, our chefs are using them. So the distribution of that product is across hundreds of people in our organization. And as you can well imagine with, you're reading CPI, you're reading food shortages, et cetera. When big food suppliers, who remain nameless to protect them here, come to a campus, we may be a customer, not the largest. And if there's milk to be delivered, we may not get it. But that's not the commitment that we make to our customers. So we've used Liquid to empower the chefs to shop locally. And that could be at the Piggly Wiggly in the South, or that could be at the farmer's market or the campus dairy. So it's been really powerful. And again, that same thing that I appreciate with very fast approval and reconciliations, that whole tie back to the accounts, we can then, keep food budgets in line and make sure that we're honoring our commitment to our customers. So it's been a variety of factors that have been proven very fruitful by buying the whole kit and caboodle. 'Cause I initially couldn't have imagined how much it could have mattered, and it matters quite a lot. And it's very easy. And it's very easy for hundreds of people.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good story there.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's enabling a lot of people that aren't always like fully under your, payroll to be like, okay, well, you're going to be empowered to be able to buy the food that's going to make the meal that you're trying to create. And they still get to be creative and do their thing when they don't have to worry about like this expense kind of hanging over their head.
Yeah. So. I mean, picture a fraternity, the commitment we make at dinner is 8 to 10 ounces of protein. If it didn't come in on the truck, the chefs, I'm looking at our internal feeds where, found it, BOGO, buy one, get one, pork loin. So we're still doing, chicken taco or pork tacos or, pastor, the fun menu items so that it's not just more pasta and more chicken because that's what came. We can still give the chefs that license to be creative and shop local. And there's been a fairly significant share shift to local, which is great. Loving the opportunity to reduce our carbon footprint as well and help local farmers. So you never know the impact you're making with your product. So that's what's happening with us.
Yeah. We love that. We all like to know that what we're doing every day is making a difference. So it's good to know.
It's a big thing.
Yeah. Nick, over to you. So, what type of technology or software do you use when booking travel and submitting expenses, and what would you change? What do you like about it?
I mean, well, obviously we use TripActions. I really wouldn't say that there's any complaints on our end.
Well, that's good.
For me, it's like small. I really like the small things that, I can even remember when it wasn't a given, but like having it automatically update on my calendar, because I'll forget.
Yes.
And then my flight will be on Friday and I'll be like, oh wait, those 8 calls everyone booked have to go away now. I'm flying. So having that there, and then the travel buffer that didn't exist initially, auto setting your travel buffer, because then you have your flight at like 11 a.m. on Friday, and people will book you on calls straight up until 11. Like, guys, have you ever been to the airport? Yes. Like, how am I going to do this? So now it automatically will set, depending. Actually, my one request, can I have a feature request?
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
Adjusting your travel time based on where your hotel is from the airport.
Ooh,
that's great. I want that too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it'll give me like 30 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm like getting my bag still.
Yeah, especially like going to New York or something. There's no way you're getting your hotel.
Yeah, New York just wash the next 3 hours.
Yeah. That is true.
But no, I really like the little things. The app has saved my life more than a few times. All the notifications, like it's really, for me, it's the little things. Yeah.
Definitely. Emily, you're nodding to a lot of that. I want to hear what you have to say.
I would definitely echo the little things. We use TripActions for like booking travel, although we unfortunately don't use it yet for expensing. We use Expensify, which that's a whole other conversation. But in terms of things that I've like really enjoyed about TripActions, I think this is like embarrassing to admit, but the whole like having all of your like rewards systems and like codes in there already. I for years would forget to put in like my mileage plus number or whatever it was, so just missed out on a lot of that. So having that automated is super nice.
I book personal travel. Like more than a couple of times I've gone to American Airlines to book a flight and it asks for my number and I don't know it. So I just go back to TripActions to get it. Like that's my folder for them now. So I'll go back to get it. And then by the time I'm back there, I'm like, oh, I'll just book it on here.
Yeah. Lemonade's so easy. I booked the trip to Kilimanjaro that way. Simple. And they saved my Annie when my luggage didn't make it from Amsterdam. I was able to go through chat and all of a sudden my luggage is on a bush plane into the middle of the Serengeti. And it was Hannah in London, whoever she is. Thank you, Hannah. I didn't have to go on safari in.
That is some kind of customer service.
Right? Because I wore like fleecy yoga pants for the flight and I didn't want to go on safari. That wasn't my vision for 10 days to be in that outfit. So yeah, it's very good.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is the perfect transition to kind of closing this conversation, which I've really thoroughly enjoyed. So thank you guys. But my last question for you guys was, do you guys have like a crazy travel story, business or personal? I hope that you made it to your final destination at the end of this story, but I have a few myself. But Nick looks like he's thinking. Maybe
I've got one.
Yeah, we'll start with you, Emily.
I have one that's kind of a funny, like, sort of like mix of pleasure and unexpected business. I was actually a few years ago walking out of the office to head on a trip to France, and as I was going in the elevator, I was with my in the elevator with my CEO. We realized we both were going to Saint-Tropez the next day. And so she was like, oh my gosh. Or actually, I was going like 3 days later. She's like, we're going to overlap for 2 nights. She was like, let's get dinner while we're there. I was like, perfect. And me and my friend that were in Paris ended up missing our flight to Saint-Tropez. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my CEO has this reservation. Like, I've got to get to Saint-Tropez. And so we're looking into like taking a helicopter from Nice, like all these just like ridiculous travel, like, I don't know, plans. And we ended up having to take like a small flight here to a bus to like an Uber. We made it, but it was like trying to meet my CEO in Saint-Tropez and all the like chaos. It was very fun.
Honestly, this sounds like a Netflix movie, Emily.
It does. I want to hear more.
2 girls trying to get across France because I was like new at the company and like didn't want to look like an irresponsible person that just straight up missed her flight. Pretty fun.
That's a good one. Nick, do you have your story?
I can't think of any good ones, honestly.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Well, Led was such a good one. 3 weeks.
I know.
Man.
Yeah, the band's a good one. I don't know. I'm just numb to it at this point. It all feels normal, but I'm sure.
Yeah, Karen, I know you already shared that you were going to have to spend the rest of Africa in your yoga fleece pants, but any other good one?
I mean, just seeing a Maasai warrior walking down a trail with your backpack, you'd never be so happy in your life. I was so happy that somehow all the dots were connected at a time when it just seemed impossible. And there were a few folks on the safari that were still waiting days later for everything. So I was just thanking the travel gods and the technology and team that made it all possible to have the trip that I had imagined, which was amazing.
That's great. I actually have one. I was supposed to land in Austin for a work event. This was at my last company. We were also TripActions customers, and I worked with Nick at Sendoso, so we were TripActions customers back then too. And we're going to Austin for an event. I was going early to spend the weekend there, and our flight did not land in Austin because of Texas weather. So if we have any people from Texas on this webinar, you will know it is impossible to drive through this weather. We landed in Houston, where I did not know a soul. Talked to the support on TripActions. They booked me on the next flight the next day and a hotel room, but ended up coming out and realized our bags were going straight to Austin. Met a couple of girls on the plane. The whole plane is San Francisco to Austin. It was pretty much all the tech people leaving after the week on site. It was Facebook, Google, Indeed, everyone going back home, and ended up road tripping from Houston to Austin in the middle of the night through a rainstorm with 2 strangers. We still keep in touch. They're really nice. That was my TripActions travel story. But everyone, thank you so much for joining today. Karen, Emily, Nick, this was so much fun. I'm probably going to have you join another webinar just so we can chat again. But with that, thank you everyone for joining today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
Thank you.